Good afternoon, old school Texas Tech. Hope everybody is doing well. I'm going to continue with my postseason predictions. I think so far, I haven't checked the score of the SMU Penn State game. I think so far I've just missed on one of these games. I picked Jacksonville to beat Ohio. Was it either yesterday or the day before? And Ohio actually won. I think that's the only game I've missed so far. But we'll see how I'll do. I'll start to keep a better record and put it in the YouTube posts. Anyway, Clemson Tigers at the Texas Longhorns. I watched Clemson. I've actually watched Clemson as much as I've watched Texas this year, if not more. As I watched the ACC championship game, which was a great game. I was surprised by this spread when I first saw it. 13.5 points is what I'm seeing right now. ESPN Analytics gives UT over an 80% chance to win. So anyway, I started diving into the numbers. Of course, Clemson, we all know Dabo Swinney's been there forever. This is actually, if you count when he started as an intern, I guess it's 17 years, 16, 17 years he's been there, something like that. 2 national titles. He's got Garrett Riley as his offensive coordinator. I think that's little brother of Lincoln Riley. He's just 2 defensive coordinators. Their quarterback's explosive. I think it's pronounced Klubnik. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've only watched the one game, and then I think part of an earlier game in the season. He threw for 3,300 yards, completed 63% of his passes, 33 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. I mean, just extremely impressive numbers. His top wide receiver, Williams, 838 yards, 10 touchdowns. He has like half a dozen other wideouts that he likes to use. And a tight end, guy's a tall guy, 6'6", I think. Last name starts with a B. I can't pronounce it. He scored 7 touchdowns. And they've got primary ball carrier Maffa, 5.2 yards a carry. The quarterback also has 5.2. Maffa's 5.2 yards a carry, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. And the quarterback has 7 rushing touchdowns as well. If you look at their schedule, they definitely would not have made it into the playoffs had they lost SMU. They got blown out by Georgia the first game of the year. Then they lost to Louisville at home by 12 points, and then they lost at home to South Carolina by a field goal, and then they made it into the playoffs by virtue of beating SMU in the thriller out in Charlotte. All right. Defensively, they've got 16. It looks like they're plus 16 on the turnover ratio, if I'm reading it right. They give up about 4.6 yards a carry. They give up about 215 through the air and 150 yards on the ground per game. All right. So the Texas Longhorns, they're obviously not in the Big 12 anymore. So I really don't follow them too much. I watched a little bit of the game where they played A&M, and I thought they looked really good. And that's really all I've seen of Texas this year. Sarkisian, he's been there for 4 years. He uses 4 coordinators, 2 co-coordinators on both sides of the ball. 3 out of the 4 have been there with him the whole time, and then he has one that's on defense, I believe, that's just started with him this year. Ewers, 66% of his passes he completed. Threw for 2,600 yards, roughly 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Golden, the wide receiver, has 8 touchdowns. Helm, the tight end, has 5 touchdowns. They have like 3 running backs that are just like automatic 5 yards a pop with the SEC schedule. All right. So kind of go through their schedule. I know a lot of people, I hear people talking that they had that they got lucky with their first year in the SEC, but they had a pretty difficult schedule. I mean, I know I heard some people complain about that when it first came out. Let me get to it. Thought I had it right up. I didn't. Anyway, they beat Michigan on the road early. They beat Oklahoma badly in Dallas. That was a huge win, obviously. Lost to Georgia by 15 points at home. I thought that win at A&M at College Station was huge, winning by 10, because I thought A&M was definitely up for that game. I actually thought A&M was going to win. They did not. And then they lost to Georgia again in overtime in the SEC championship game. The reason why, after you start to look at these statistics, you start to realize that Vegas is really not far off. And the problem is that Texas only they're +6 on the turnover ratio. They've got one of the lowest I've seen on third. They're getting teams off the field on third down like very well. They're doing a very great job at that. I think they're right at 30% on they're holding people to getting them off the field, opponents off the field 70% of the time. They're only giving up 3.1 yards a carry, and they're only allowing about 250 yards a game. So the Texas defense is fantastic. I think what's going to happen in this game, the problem for Clemson, they're very explosive on offense, but Texas has the better defense, and Texas is going to be able to run the ball on them. And they're just Clemson already gives up an average of 4.6 yards a carry. The Texas running backs are just going to be able to milk the clock. I think the only way Clemson has any chance to win this game would be turnovers. Texas, as long as Texas takes care of the ball, hands it to the running backs, and plays a steady, solid defense against a good Clemson team. Clemson's, definitely good enough to be in the playoffs. They're a good team, but I think Texas is going to win this game 35-21 based on their defense and their running game. I think Clemson's only chance would be if they just start getting some takeaways in this game. But I think Texas is going to win 35-21 in advance.